What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you here for another week of Every Day We're Covering, where we talk the world of sports, wagering, and having a good time. We're rocking right into the heart now of college basketball season. Actually, not that far off here from conference tournament time, and then we'll get into, of course, the big dance after that. We're kind of put the cap already on the football season. We will touch a little bit on a few football headlines, and then we'll dive into some college hoops. SJ, we've had some fun college basketball games to watch. If you're a fan, I mean, that's certainly been a good thing to keep us tided over. If you're an Olympics or obscure sports person, that's getting you a little bit something to get by right now too. But I think college basketball is delivering right now for folks.
Yeah, I saw there's even a hockey fight of sorts. Make that happen.
Yeah.
I believe earlier today, so that's unusual. But yeah, the Olympics, I guess it's always fun to peek in there for some events. I mean, whatever. I like what you like. I can never get into the curling thing, but some of those luge and bobsledding and oh man, that stuff's wild. You know, can you imagine going 7 mile an hour down some course and it's just you and air? Like you got to be kind of a little bit on the crazy side to go through that, but it's a fun watch. But as you mentioned, basketball, college basketball, it's been pretty. You never know because the schedules are made such far in advance, and also just it's a weird situation where you're playing a Tuesday, a Wednesday, maybe a Saturday, a Sunday, then the next Thursday. So it's not like you can kind of mark your days by it. But there's been some pretty good matchups, and even last night, look at as we record today, there's some pretty decent sized upset there with Texas Tech knocking off Arizona. So it's been some exciting games to watch.
Yeah, there's been good stuff. I know I sat down and watched for quite a while yesterday on Saturday, and yeah, there was some good basketball out there. And I think as we get closer, it's going to become, I think, even more and more evident to folks as they're locking in just how many good teams are out there. And I think we're in for a pretty darn good tournament here this year, and we should have some really good conference tournaments too. So I think we'll have no shortage of fun things to explore if you're especially a basketball fan. As we get rolling, though, here on the podcast, we always like to talk about what's, getting us by as far as beverages are concerned as well. We've certainly have had a kind of a little bit of a heat wave here in the Midwest. Where suddenly it feels like spring, almost summer in some locations. I know we hit 70 degrees in a few places here and expecting that maybe even this upcoming week, which is kind of odd. I saw a couple of kind of comedic posts from a few different eateries or, breweries and such kind of joking about first patio guests of the season. So, we're starting to get to that point. So hopefully, yeah, you're getting out there and enjoying that. When the weather improves, it just always, I don't know, makes that stuff go down a little bit easier. That's for sure when you get a little sunshine mixed in with it.
Oh yeah, it's the mood enhancers of all mood enhancers. No matter what the conditions, but you give yourself a nice day, and that's times 100.
Yeah. I'm pulling one out here this week that I go to this every once in a while, and I think I may have mentioned it as far as a shout out on the show before, but I don't remember precisely of this variety or not. But the fine folks at Deschutes Brewery out there in Oregon, I do like quite a few of their beers. They tend to make pretty good stuff in my opinion, but this is one that is just kind of a good, solid, crisp, clean beer that I get every once in a while. It's it fits. The name fits. It's called King Crispy. It's their Pilsner beer, and it's just a good, crisp Pilsner beer. Something when you don't want anything exotic. It kind of fits the mold, and especially like I said, when you get the warmer weather, stuff that goes down easy is always nice, and that's what I'm pouring down this week here. SJ, what do you got?
We're kind of thinking along the same lines there, and I'm back with my buddies there at Cinder Block in North Kansas City. They've never done me wrong, so I like to put a little extra money in their pockets. But I got the West Coast pills that they make.
Nice.
So a little more bite to it. I was trying to look for the ABV. I couldn't quite. Maybe it's not printed clearly on the can, at least from my eyesight. But it does have a little bit more. And I'll tell you this. I mean, mentioned it before. Say it again. I'm not really big IPA guy, but this one I enjoy this, and I'd probably say has probably more of a bite than you would think with a Pilsner, but that's just the West Coast style, and maybe it was the weather too, because I'm talking about those nice sunny days. I feel like I was on the it could be on the West Coast without if you close your eyes, at least you open them. You realize pretty quick we're a long ways from there. But and at least the beer. I mean, though, this is you would like this one because I know you like a little bit of that bite sometimes too, which not over the top, but just enough to kind of get your attention, and then a little nice finish at the end. So the West Coast Pills for Cinder Block in North Kansas City. Recommend that to anybody listening, or if you see it, pick it up.
All right. Sounds like a good one. Yeah. This one, the King Crispy, is a 4.8%. So it's got, a little bit more maybe than your standard, when you're thinking about just a light, clean beer, for sure. It gives you a little extra kick. I don't know if this is a joke or not, but on the side of it, it says, this fine beer you are holding was crowned winner of Pilsner Fest, the Bitburger Challenge at the North Portland German Beer Bar Prost. So very specific, but good for them. It is good. I like it. So that was what we got going there for beverages here this week, powering us on through. As we get rolling, we did want to touch on a couple of, we're going to talk a lot of college hoops here at the end, but did want to get a couple of other headlines out of the way that are kind of more football related. And of course, the one thing that was very much more football related was the big game that wrapped up, the old Super Bowl. We had the Seahawks pretty much dominate the game against the New England Patriots. We had kind of joked about, would we record a show right after the game happened, and well, there wasn't really much game to to think about, so that wasn't even something that really crossed our minds. But we did pretty well on hitting a few of the props, though, too. If you were paying attention, we did have some of our picks that turned out pretty good. I know we were both kind of on the side of the Seahawks winning and covering the number, and of course they did that. And then got a couple of other little nice hitters in there as well. I did hit the old defensive special teams touchdown for the Seahawks. So that really helped boost the profit margin that night. And then even worked out had the Ramondre Stevenson anytime touchdown, and he sneaked one in there towards the end of the game. So yeah, it's a nice little day. Kind of got a little bit of the boost. And like we said, the perils of doing those things, though, is you're doing so many things that sometimes it just kind of like washes out. You win some, you lose some. But I was on the positive enough to come out a little bit ahead this time around. So that felt good.
Surprisingly, the overs had a run for your money there. They almost ended up hitting it as bad as that game was. The only one that really bothered me, because I was pretty confident that was that penalty that brought back that Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
I was like, damn it. And then also the MVP thing, I was like, shoot, he'd end up getting it, of course, but that would have sewed it up for sure right there. So I was like, oh, double whammy, it could have been right there, but I guess he still got the, MVP at least. But, and then as far as the game goes, when you think about it, everyone's like kind of disappointed. I was like, oh man, that Super Bowl sucked. But if you go back and look at a lot of them, it's a big event, and it's a big build up, and you think you got the two best teams of this league going against each other. So, but just going back through the years, and when you think about it and actually look back, most of these games do kind of suck. Actually, there's not a lot of good Super Bowls. When you have a good one, it's more of like the rare occasion than actually the blowout. And it may not be to the extent of some of these games that was total domination. It may not be that bad, but when you final scores, it's not uncommon for a double-digit loss. And when you have the two best teams, you do lose a double-digit win. I'd consider that a pretty, blowout of sorts. If you think what even in that game where everybody was pretty much calling for the Seahawks to win, it still was only like a 4.5, 5-point advantage within a score. So these teams should be pretty evenly matched. And then the way the game plays, I was just like, Patriots couldn't do anything. I mean, luckily Seattle wasn't really cashing in on their drives early in the game. Otherwise, that could have got ugly sooner. But I mean, it was the low scoring is what for at least almost 3 quarters or pretty much all. And that's what made it kind of seem like, oh, this game is terrible.
Yeah.
The Super Bowls are usually pretty bad. That's why they got to have these elaborate halftime shows and all these commercials, because a lot of times the game isn't worth watching. You want to keep your audience like just in case. And it just happened. I mean, I just can't think. I mean, even like last year wasn't it being a good game, no matter what team you're on the side of. And if it just maybe the Niners and Chiefs a couple years back where it kind of came down to the last minute.
Yeah,
that's about the last one I remember being like, oh man, you kind of knew the outcome of most of them. You go back 10 years more times than not. It was decided by definitely before the fourth quarter, if not at halftime.
Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong. That's true, and it is it's always such a weird game too, just with everything that goes on. Sometimes it's hard to have a good game just because it's all broken up. You get the weird long halftime that kind of ruins the momentum of one team, perhaps, and yeah, it's a hard one to have a good, consistent, all around good game. I mean, certainly there were good plays. I mean, you got to tip your cap to a lot of players on what they were able to do, and especially on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, for a fan's viewing pleasure, that didn't really translate into excitement out there. So yeah, it was it had its moments, but yeah, it was overall pretty much a dud just because of the way that the Seahawks, I thought, dominated the game for one, and then yeah, the lack of scoring until the end, that always kind of puts a damper on it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and then you also got the huge buildup leading up to the game, which I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to even keep that momentum going. You got a whole week of all these, silly interviews and questions and that type of thing. So, and then it's also the biggest game of your life with all the pressure added
Yeah,
to it. So,
yeah,
I mean, I think you can find some. That one's a little. That was about as tough though as it was for me to kind of be like, you can. Usually, I just try to be like, well, you can find some entertainment there. That one pushed you to the limit. It was a little. That was a tough watch for a while. So especially if you're not into the commercials and that type of thing, like you're like, come on, give me some football here. That's what
yeah.
I was watching for. So I mean, because a lot of those, props that maybe ones we are looking at that we didn't do is like these aren't even having a, you're not even getting a look at it. There's not even an opportunity because it's just punt, 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 punt.
Yeah.
We got to have more than 4 or 5 downs a possession to get some of these to get these over rushings and these receptions and those type of those type of bets. It's like we're not giving us a chance to to get in the game here.
Yeah, the only one that was hanging on that stayed interesting, and of course it stayed interesting for the wrong reasons, was I kind of agreed with you with the whole Kenneth Walker touchdown situation. So I went ahead and took a chance on the first touchdown score. And of course, that took forever until we found out if somebody was gonna score a touchdown. So, it's kind of one of those anticlimactics. But yeah, at least that if you were looking for who was going to score the first touchdown in the game, you had an awful long time to wait to find out who that was going to be.
Yeah, and then yeah, of course, man, if you'd saw that one coming, I bet you had some pretty good odds on pretty good plus money on that one cashing in.
Yeah, no kidding. Who really did it? Yeah, crazy stuff. But yeah, it was. Yeah, overall not the best game, but yeah, we hit some bets, so that was all right. I didn't hate the whole night, that's for sure. I did want to give a shout out too, and I haven't, and sadly I haven't reached out to these folks, and I haven't released distributed the funds, I guess, so to speak. I gotta get this taken care of, but we did have some folks get in on the every day we're covering Super Bowl prop pool here for Super Bowl 60, and well, you may be delighted to know, SJ, you are one of 3. That tied here for the victory. So we had a 3-way tie. We're just gonna give it to the 3, spread it out between the 3 that won. But SJ was one of them, along with my buddy Jim Hilton, and then another individual here from the area. That's a relative of one of my buddies here in town, Hadley Ogg. You all had 14 correct out of the 20 in the prop pool. So congratulations to those folks. That's really not a bad number. 14 out of 20. That's a decent run.
Yeah, I got to start looking at my Amazon wish list now and see where I'm going to cash in there. But no, that was a fun deal. I was just kind of glancing at it. I was like, I think I did okay. Who knows what? And then I kind of just get busy and time slip your mind. So yeah, It was man, I just could have got that 15th one though. That's gonna haunt me for a while here.
Yep.
Could have been alone at the top of the top of the mountain by myself.
Yeah, and of course there's always a few that are they were pretty close or questionable on how it was going to come out. But well, in some of them too, it was it kind of became a weird conundrum, because I think one of them was who out of these guys who's going to have the most receiving yards. Well, I think it turned out that none of them had the most out of anybody, so it was just out of those guys who had the most. I mean, that's how it played, but yeah, kind of a weird game because of the offense did stink. That it just kind of skewed everything a little bit. So, but yeah, we had some fun with that. So thanks for the folks that jumped into that. We had a decent group that got in there, and then yeah, congrats to those that were able to get the most correct there. 14 out of the 20 score. By the way, I will own up. I was not second. I only got 10, so not so good.
Yeah.
Like 50-50, I guess ain't too terrible, but yeah, pretty tough outing on that front. All right, so that was a little bit about that big contest, and of course, yeah, that puts a bow on football altogether here for the year. We did a couple of other headlines that are related a little bit to more of the college game, and first one I want to touch on here is kind of a topic that carried over, I guess, from last time we talked, because we discussed how, finances aren't exactly the easiest thing to overcome anymore in college sports. And we've started to see some athletic departments either be forthright with it or have somebody start to peek into the finance sheet a little bit and figure out that things aren't exactly going that well. Because, yeah, I mean, we've got to find lots of revenue now for lots of different things. And that, of course, includes that dedicated revenue share that you have with players across sports now. And that's impacting the bottom line. And I think even before we got there were some universities that were already maybe in a little bit of trouble because, they had spent so much on facilities, perhaps to try to catch up, playing a catch-up game. We've had a lot of conference movement. So, either that impacted you in a positive or a negative way, depending on, what school you are. You're getting more revenue share or you're getting less. But then also we talked about Rutgers last time, which the big story came out about how, they're so far indebted now, even with, getting a huge revenue chunk share every year now from the Big Ten. And I think part of that, again, was, kind of catching up with the Joneses. They needed to build more things facility wise to impress recruits and to just kind of get up to speed with everybody else. And then you've got to balance that with how much are you actually making? I mean, are you bringing fans in to fill the stadiums? Are you selling, good concessions? Are you all the things? The licensing deals. Are you selling enough merchandise? That's part of the thing as well. So we've seen that some schools, I think, have struggled with that year to year, and maybe it's not consistent. Maybe they have one good year and then the next year is not so good. And of course, sometimes that comes and goes with success, how you're doing on the field. But the next one that we've seen here, a little story that came out, a guy digging in, there's a $500 million in the red for a program that you wouldn't think would be the one that we'd start talking about. Penn State University is the one that he was peeking into behind. Now, this does have a lot to do with they're doing a very large, I believe, $700 million some investment into Beaver Stadium and renovations there. So that's a big part of why this is trending in the wrong direction. So, it's not a total they're just a screwed athletic department deal. But that's part of the puzzle, too. And if you're going to commit to those kinds of things, obviously you've got to make up that revenue somewhere. They've just gone through a coaching change, which costs them on one end, and then new guys coming in. Of course, you always want to pay players and they've done that in a big way this year, just pretty much turning over their entire roster. So, yeah, I mean, it's not just the little guys anymore. I don't think that we're worried about making enough revenue to make ends meet.
Yeah, and then I mean, of course, it's he says just looking at the spending, so it's not necessarily like, oh, they're gonna, athletic department's folding tomorrow because but it also is it's a little jarring, and you kind of you see these big schools, because I've even seen some other deep dives. I guess maybe it's just a deal where sports is a little slow, and they're like, let's give some more sports business type of reporting. I know it's become a popular I guess outlet, or you got a lot of other podcasts and websites that just really cover the business side of sports. So maybe they're kind of going hot and heavy now that the games are in a little bit of a break here, for at least football wise. But I've seen the likes of a Florida State, even like Oklahoma, just mentioned of like big amounts of where they're kind of falling short, or where they're overspending compared to what they're bringing in for revenue. So it's just you think you see these big entities and big universities, and the stadiums are full, and looks like they got all the gear you'd ever want, and all the planes, and the the nice cars and all that type of stuff. But it's, I guess, just like in your everyday life, you see people with all this new stuff, and you're like, oh man, they must be doing well. It's like you just never really know like the exact situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of an interesting thing of, you would think that some of these schools wouldn't have, like, this wouldn't even be a concern for them when you see these TV contracts and all the deals that they're making. You just kind of get the headline. You're like, oh man, that'd be nice to be in those shoes, but it's not always that easy to kind of operate and still make a profit, even though you got this crazy amount of money coming in left and right. And what is it, the 20 million that's I guess earmarked for NIL type of stuff, but we know that's not going to stop whatever other type of agreements and arrangements and payments. So if whatever school's going above and beyond, that money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that too. I mean, I will give a little bit of a break to some places, because I'm sure there are plenty of schools that were in the middle of, they had already made a decision on a big thing, like for perhaps a stadium type project. Maybe they made that decision before the whole NIL thing blew up. They've committed to this, they know this is coming, and then now you've got the rev share thing. And not that it's something that wasn't like totally off their radar. They probably had to see the writing on the wall a little bit, but to then have to figure out, oh shit, I got to come up with this also millions of dollars to cover. I mean, we're not talking about small amounts of money, every year that you have to come up with. So I could see at a play, and especially at some of these, smaller to mid-tier schools and, athletic departments that maybe aren't necessarily bringing in lots of revenue, how that could be pretty jarring and pretty hard to overcome. That's something you don't exactly plan for.
And we brought it up just from the football, perspective, because that's most what we're talking about. But there's more than just that sport within the athletic department, and a lot of these sports, which whether they're popular and you might have a one of the best teams out there, whether it be like baseball or volleyball or tennis, golf, whatever. A lot of those sports, they come out and say at the schools they consider it a non-revenue sport. I know they used to call them like Olympic sports just because that's a little bit less. I guess it doesn't sound as demeaning because it's not like these athletes aren't putting in the work and achieving success, and non-revenue kind of is a little bit it doesn't exactly sound great, but I mean the reality is the reality.
Mm-hmm.
So even major programs in popular sports, sometimes it's a different you don't have the capacities, you don't maybe have the you're not getting whether some schools here and there, but you're not getting 30,000, 50,000, 60,000 people to watch whatever not only just the interest, but also the the facilities. You don't have you're gonna see thousands of people along a golf course in the middle of a day, or they're teeing off at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Like on a Tuesday for these tournaments and or whatever, these tennis events and all these other types of sports, swimming and diving and whatever, listed whatever they is that's it's out there. So that's that's part of the equation too. It's not just like, oh, they're losing because of football, because I think that's the easy assumption with because that's the headlines that you see with the NIL stuff. It's like this player's supposedly getting this much millions or doing this, and that's so I think people are just kind of maybe trying to draw that conclusion that this football is killing these athletic departments, which maybe in the long run that could end up being true down the road, but it's just early in the conversation. To me, is more just it is really. You kind of think like I would just like, oh, these schools they're in good shape, they're all all good. And
Mm-hmm.
Rutgers didn't necessarily surprise much, just as being they've kind of had some not necessarily financial, but it's never been like a athletic factory like some of these schools are, as far as having being great at every sport. So when you see schools that you do kind of think about like, oh man, they've been good at wrestling, they've been good at basketball, baseball, some of these other ones, and then you're like, and there's bleeding money. It is kind of like, well, man, what you kind of wonder what's going on, and it's obviously not intentional. It's just very curious.
Yeah. So this particular little look in, just by the way, if you wanted to just hear some of the numbers. So Penn State closed fiscal year 2025 with $534.7 million in athletics related debt. That more than tripled the $163.1 million they reported the prior year, and that easily exceeds the $437 million in FY25 that Florida State had disclosed as the debt. They were the ones that had the largest prior to that. Now, we mentioned that is, $700 million renovation for Beaver Stadium, which is being financed through debt. The school said will be repaid via fundraising, concessions, naming opportunities, sponsorships, and ticket sales. So basically it's a liability on the balance sheet until you get it paid back, and it is going directly through the athletic department. They started it with an initial $70 million bond, and then are working up to more that's being added on from there. So it's only going to look worse. It's going to look worse in the next couple of years for them. That's not as high as that number is going to get. So yeah, that's like you said, what is jarring. I mean, we're talking $500 million here. That's not, that ain't peanuts. So yeah, there's a lot of that obviously is going to be made up by, selling the place out and, selling, like they said, naming rights, all those kinds of things. Yeah, that's going to make up the ground. But still, to be on the hook for that much money and not, it's nothing's ever an absolute known when it comes to college athletics either. So you're counting on some things that may not come to fruition down the road. And again, like I said, sometimes a lot of that has to do with success too. So, good luck, Matt Campbell, I guess. You just signed up for that. You got to do well, because otherwise, I mean, there's a lot of dollar reasons why they could say, we're going to do something different if you're not producing victories on the field and filling the stadium up. And not that it's a fan base that's going to, go away if they don't win. That's not necessarily their MO, but still, got to be good and be on the top echelon of it to be making up that kind of money. So very interesting. We'll see, obviously where this goes with some other places as well. I'm sure we'll start to get, like you said, more and more of these types of reports, because it is becoming more popular for folks to look into the business side of it. And it's getting attention for a reason, because, there is a lot more money involved now. And when it comes to, athletes being paid as part of that, it is going to get more scrutiny and more attention. So they've got a lot of bills to pay there at Penn State and Rutgers right now. And like we've talked about before, the athletic director at the school I follow is already, like, even 6-7 months ago said, this year down the road right now, it ain't looking good. Like, we've got to do some things to figure out how we're going to balance this sheet because we don't have the money. We're finding other ways to get revenue. And honestly, I think I've started to see some of the things that you're probably going to see more of a reality at a lot of places around the country, and that's being creative. I know they already have 2 major concert deals scheduled for Jack Trice Stadium this summer, with one more probably on the way. Of course, they announced a couple of years ago a whole development that's taking place between the basketball venue and the football stadium that's kind of got a mixed use area where they're going to be, selling leases and selling, space for businesses to be a part of there. And I think that's all those kinds of things that you're going to start to see more and more of from these universities to create revenue generating opportunities in order to pay these bills.
I think when it comes to that, you appreciate the honesty, but it is like, because I remember, when going back to Colorado making their splash with Deion Sanders, and their AD came out and said, like, I don't know if we can, we don't have the money to pay him right now, but we're going to go give it a try here. And then, what is it, 2 years ago that Mullen went to UNLV, or is this his first year this year? I think it's just right first. Before he started, that was another situation I remember where they
didn't have the money to pay him.
They didn't know where his money for his contract was going to come from. So, we always want the honesty, so you got to accept it when it comes out there. But it just kind of blows your mind, is the fact that you think one thing of these universities, just because you know how much it costs to attend. You would think there'd be and that's just talking about students, and nothing to do with the athletic part of it, but just as far as the money that you have coming in, and then of course that's athletics has different money funneling in on top of that. So it's just kind of scratch your head about it is the main thing, and you're like, man, that's I guess we're not alone in this real world here of struggling someday. So maybe you're like find a little comfort in that.
Yeah, they're finally,
it's not just me.
They're finally starting to realize that, like, what the real world's like here. Yeah, we got to live paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, no shit. Everything costs more. The other thing too, I would like, and this may sound, I don't know, I'm sure some people would poo-poo me for even talking about this, but because it is a more of a gain than it is a loss. But I would like to know, like, for example, when we've had all this crazy realignment, say a Washington, for example, that joins the Big Ten, I would like to know, what is that jump in expense that you've incurred for the competition and travel that you now have to have compared to the revenue that you're bringing in. Because yes, I know it's greater. Overall, you're making more money, 100%. But some of that stuff though, you cannot be cheap to fly the baseball team to friggin' Piscataway. Like, I mean, we all go, we hopefully every once in a while get a chance as an average human being to go take a trip somewhere.
That's a vacation. You're not trying to perform. I got, and like with something on the line.
Yeah. And we know how much that costs,
Right.
just to like get a flight somewhere and a couple room, a room for a few days. Like all that stuff's crazy expensive to, the average person. And you're adding that up times, at least 40 people, every team, at least, probably more than that in a lot of cases. That expense has got to add up. I would like to know what that percentage is that eats out of the return when it comes to those things.
Well, and also the other side of it, I guess that's kind of I was thinking of too, is not only the money of it, but just the I guess mental and physical like wear and tear of travel.
Yeah.
That's I mean, you may be like, oh, we got way more money, we're making more, but if you like factored in, that side of it, that's a cost to be paid too. Of course, you don't want anybody to be like, oh, this. I mean, what is it? The UCLA coach with Mick Cronin, he goes a little bit crazy with these. I'm like that, and this is the type of guy that says people complain too much and are too soft.
Mm-hmm.
And like, literally, what do you do like every single day of your life? But I guess that's maybe we'll get into that with the college basketball talk later on. But so you don't want it to go that way. But I do think, I mean, there's got to be a little bit of a truth to that. Of maybe the money is greater and you're kind of coming out good on that side, but there's a price to be paid for having to traverse time zones more than once in a season. That is, and I don't know about some of the other conferences, but I know I can just know from the teams that watch and follow more closely. I do for most of the sports. The Big Ten tries to make it like an East Coast trip or a West Coast trip, almost like an NBA style thing. But then I guess you kind of whatever student athlete we have left. I mean, that would be tough too, because there are some people still trying to earn a degree. Like, not everyone's gonna end up, at that level. So yeah. So that's a little tricky there. So I mean, so that helps, but it's also a unique challenge in itself. So
that wasn't I can't remember what it was. It was college basketball weekend, and they were joking about the demands of college and whatever. And one of the studio hosts made a joke about, well, yeah, I mean, nobody's sweating out a Kim final anymore. Like,
I didn't catch that one too. I can't remember what I said, but I caught that one. Yeah,
that's true. Speaking of, the same kind of situation, interesting news that North Dakota State, of course, has long been an FCS power, is making the jump to the FBS level. And they're going to be joining the Mountain West Conference, which has, obviously drastically changed over the last few years because the Pac-12 stole some of those schools now to reincarnate itself with what's left there. So there's been a lot of jockeying, but they're going to be part of a very interesting league now that includes, of course, Hawaii and Northern Illinois, who has jumped out of the MAC to join this Mountain West foray. So yeah, I mean, talk about some unique travel. They're about to jump right into it, especially for a bunch of guys that are used to, the desolate, cold plains. I mean, I'm certain that's going to have an advantage when people come to their place, for sure. But of course, they do play in a dome, but still,
hey, they still got to get from the hotel to that stadium. So yeah, that's enough of a mental intimidation there.
Yeah, but yeah, interesting. I mean, and I have no doubts that they'll compete and be a tough team. I mean, what they've been able to do at some of those schools is, pretty remarkable as far as the consistency of the success that they've had. Just the toughness that they built. You talk about a North Dakota State, a South Dakota State, those types of programs. And I think, for the large part in that type of situation against the teams that they'll play, I think they'll be just fine.
Well, I mean, yeah, looking at the big picture of things, of course, everyone's like fast forward, like, oh, there's no way they can compete with Ohio State. And I'm like, dude, they're not. They're in the Mountain West. Like,
yeah, they're not worried about that.
I mean, yeah, if they get a play, it's going to be in the playoff, and that's the whole goal. Like, just make you make the playoff probably one time, and they'll be like, oh, they're going to be having riots there, and and friggin' in the dancing in the
Yeah,
streets.
no kidding.
So like that's gonna be fine. But they've pretty much done all they can do at the level they're at. I mean, of course, you can keep winning championships. No one's going to be mad about that. But it's not like there's anything left for them to do that they haven't already accomplished. So
Mhm.
why not take a chance? There's a good opportunity to move up. I feel like at least with the teams that are in their immediate conference, you can. I think they could compete fairly well. Honestly,
Mhm.
it'll be a little different having to not kind of be the I guess whatever, sneak up on somebody because they've got some teams at the D1 level in the past, but that's more like you just gotta in a 1 week scenario, it'll be an adjustment to have to kind of go to battle there every week at that highest level, and then financially we just talked about that may be a challenge. I don't know how that's going to work with them being just a football D1 school if they get all the benefits of that, however that works with NIL for them and that type of deal. I'm sure they
Mhm.
would be open to they got to have some type of I guess better than what they have now. I would think moving up. So,
Mhm.
but either way, I kind of welcome the the addition as far as like entertainment wise and viewing. It's like because I've always a part of challenge. Why not challenge yourself and
Yeah.
go shoot for the shoot for the freaking biggest target out there and see how see how things fall out.
Hmm. Well, they said obviously it's well documented, but if you don't follow it, um, they've won 10 of the last 15 FCS national championships. Like that's like you said, nothing left to prove in that type of situation. So why not? If anybody's able to make that, we've seen plenty of schools do it. If anybody's able to and deserving of, they are certainly of that ilk. Um, they will pay it's interesting that they will pay a decent fee. They're going to pay $12 million to join the league, and that's in addition to the $5 million that they already have to pay to the NCAA to move up to FBS. So it is a little bit of a change out of their pocket to do so. But like you said, I think the return will be pretty valuable for them as far as on that football front. Um, the one that was interesting to me about that situation more so than them was the Northern Illinois thing. They left the MAC. They're joining just for football as well. I don't know what kind of, maybe they feel like that's a higher profile. I don't know. It's kind of interesting for me. They fit pretty well in the MAC. You would think so, but maybe for them again, maybe it's the exposure thing. Everybody thinks about that and seeing in different markets and all that kind of stuff. So perhaps they just feel like it separates themselves a little bit from some of those other Midwest teams. So that was an interesting story there to put on the docket as well. Couple of things there on the football front. Now we're going to move into college basketball here a little bit more, dive a little deeper. We do have some other things that we maybe will touch on down the road too, as far as some other football headlines. But college hoops, like I said, has been pretty fantastic here lately. We kind of alluded to, yesterday was a really good day for viewing if you're a hoops fan. Of course, there were some big top 25 matchups or some big top 10 teams that were in action that were able to get some things done. I think you had, I don't know, there was at least, I think, 3 to 4 top 25 matchups themselves, which, sometimes it's kind of hard to do, on one day throughout the season. But Duke took down Clemson 67-54. They continue to look like a really good team. Obviously, Cameron Boozer's a great player. They have a great, obviously, home court atmosphere as always, and they're going to be a tough out here come the NCAA tournament. Iowa State hosted Kansas yesterday, and the Clones were able to get a little payback there against the Jayhawks. I'll dive more into that here in a little bit as we kind of touch on our own teams. And then Florida beat Kentucky in a 14-25 matchup. That was a 92-83 win there for the Gators. And then the big one in the nightcap was that Arizona hosting Texas Tech. That's where game day was yesterday. It goes to overtime. Tech wins it 78-75, which is a huge win for Texas Tech. I mean, no doubt. A huge win for anybody that goes in there and wins at the McHale Center, especially with the team that they have there at Arizona right now. But I think it goes, again, like I said, to speak to the number of good teams that are out there, because you look at some of the star players on each of those teams, and JT Toppin was just terrific yesterday there for Texas Tech. He's a kind of a tough matchup just because he is such a skilled forward. he's a big guy, but he's got a lot of touch. So tough to kind of, you can try to muscle up with him, but then he's going to get you with the finesse, and that's what makes him really dangerous. And they've got some good guards too. Atwell hits a bunch of big threes in the corner. And Arizona's got an array of good guys out there. But they were up, I don't know, I think they were up 6 at least with like a little over a minute left. And Tech came back and got the lead with like 20 some seconds left. They hit the 3 to go up 2. Arizona then, of course, tied it and sent it to the OT. But then Tech didn't flinch. They just kept hitting the shots. They hit a bunch of big shots early in that overtime session to get the lead, and then they held on to it. Last desperation heave there at the end didn't go for Arizona that would have tied it. But really good game. That was the fun atmosphere. And, those are just 2 teams, I think, out of maybe 5 or 6 in the Big 12 alone that you could maybe make a pretty good argument for that could win the whole damn thing. And I think you've got, at least probably that many, probably 5 at least in the Big 10 that you could start having that discussion about too. There's a lot of solid teams out there.
Upsets are like, are the I guess the always the story when it comes to the postseason and March Madness, but usually it's unforeseen. This year it seems more like you can literally say 10. I'd probably go as far as 10 teams, maybe 7 on the conservative side of that you could see making a run or winning it all, across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always the case, because usually you have like a team that's like, I mean, maybe a couple weeks ago we might have said that about Arizona, but they've, and even Michigan at one point is like, who's going to beat these guys? And then they get beat, like, not so good after all.
Yeah.
They'll lose a couple games or whatever, which, I mean, I still think obviously they're both good teams. I'm not saying
both are good,
terrible now or anything, but it is just kind of, it seems a little bit more wide open because we don't have that, at least dominant looking team on the court. Now on certain days you see some of these teams, you're like, man, they look look amazing, but everyone's had a bit of an up and down stretch this season, and that's maybe Arizona's kind of hitting theirs right now, which I suppose, you kind of get to the point where now you need to get out of your system and, kind of get back on track. But it's not the worst time to maybe drop a couple. And it's not like they looked awful, and they kind of just got outplayed there in the key moments,
mm-hmm.
or didn't make a play. And just to make, I was, watching at halftime, it's still pretty close. And, you get 4.5 points for Tech there early in the second half. And I'm like, let's make things interesting. Like, make me watch the end of this game and stay awake. So, go on the +4 Tech. And so I'm kind of rooting them a little bit. And you get to the end, and a couple of times I'm like, they're going to blow this one. They made a couple asinine decisions. And then even they had the ball with, there's at least 10 seconds left when they took over. It might have been more than that, or around there, to have the final shot to win it.
Mm-hmm.
And you get some weird reverse pivot fadeaway, chucking it up. And right after their coach is kind of a loose cannon. I don't know about that guy.
He is.
I mean, I'm sure obviously maybe he's a good coach. I don't know if I can say that yet, just because the amount of talent they have. That's kind of a bot roster. That's pretty much how Tech operates these days,
mm-hmm.
whether it's football, basketball, women's softball, whatever. It's kind of a, buy your team and hope it works out. But either way, he gets in the guy's face, just keeps going, why? I'm like, obviously freaking he didn't want to miss it, but I'm like, that's your coaching right there. Like, mm-hmm. he's a little bit of a head case for my liking, but ended up pulling it out there. And because in overtime, I mean, you talk about topping, and it's like he's a little bit different because it's not, I wouldn't really say he's like back to the basket type of player, but at the same time he does kind of have those little, I guess you call him a hook shot. I don't know if it's more like a little like a floater just extended, but I mean, he'll do, right hand, left hand within 4 or 5 feet. And I mean, at that height and with his athleticism, you're not blocking that. You just got to hope
mm-hmm.
you miss it.
Yeah. And he makes a lot of them. He's got
I mean, don't even get over the rim. That lefty that he did, it was like, that was like straight,
like a line drive.
It had no arch to it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause when he turned and put it up, I was like, oh, bad choice. And then it goes like straight in. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. That's the kind of guy he is. Certainly. I mean, he's one that is certainly really impressive on that team. On the other side, for Arizona, obviously the two of the new guys are getting a lot of attention, Burries, and then Pete. He ended up being out for a good chunk of the game there, which did hurt Arizona's chances, no doubt. But Atwell is just such a beast. Like, I love watching that guy play because he's like one of those guys that always, just finds the right, or no, it's not Atwell, Owaka there for Arizona. He's always in the right spot to get a rebound. Like, if it's a questionable situation at the end of the game and like somebody's going to get a board, you can almost say like 75% he's going to get the ball because he just knows where to be and he goes and gets it. Fun guy, and he's strong, big guy, and he's got a little bit of that touch too, not quite as much as some of the others, and that's I think what holds him back from being like a really 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 good player. But he's one to be reckoned with. So he's fun to watch. And then in the same kind of ilk as him, Flory Badunga for Kansas, he's kind of the same way. Like just a big guy that is strong. He's in the right spot a lot of times. He's got like the athleticism to get up and throw things down a lot, so they'll do lobs to him a lot of times. But fun player to watch. And it's just those kind of guys that you see at so many places now. Like you kind of worry sometimes, like at some point is the talent level gonna drop? We get these questions about some of these guys, how committed they are to playing college basketball, because we know how that argument goes. Some of them don't need to be there; they should go pro, and that is what it is. And Kansas has got a situation with that with a different guy, but I don't know. You see a lot of guys, and of course, and I do think, and I have, from what you see and what you hear, I don't attend these events, but it does appear that like the AAU thing and all of that has kind of had like a somewhat of a negative impact on the perception of basketball, just because it's the whole, who's paying the most to have these guys team and to have your kids go play, and are they really learning the right things sometimes is kind of like in question. But it's refreshing to see that I think just natural talent always overcomes all the bad things. Like there's still plenty of guys that are athletic, are good at basketball, have committed to it, obviously put in a lot of work to it, and still a lot of guys that are fun to watch. Because I hung on and watched after that Arizona game, and I watched a little bit of Arkansas Auburn for a while, and there were some phenomenal dunks in the early portion of that game with some guys that just have some crazy athleticism. So that's what's cool, and then I think that's what makes college basketball so great right now across the board, is you got a few of those guys at a lot of different places, and it makes it very competitive. There's not, again, maybe it's not that one team that's killing everybody, because you've got these guys spread out that can make an impact on a different team.
Well, and then you go to the after dark, and you got that Gonzaga and Santa Clara matchup.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty interesting in its own right. It's a totally different world. You're in a 4,000 or 5,000 capacity gym there, and just and of course Gonzaga's that's a name now. It seems like they looked a little different to me though. And maybe I haven't watched them as close the last couple of years, but it's not the same. Doesn't seem like a little bit different style. Like maybe they have gone more of the I don't know if you want to call it name players or transfer type guys, and kind of gone a different route. Probably just to keep up with the times and the way the game's been going. So we'll see how that goes. It just seemed like a little different look to me, but they end up winning, of course, and holding on. But it's just you kind of there's still like you said, there's I guess a variety there of the the can't miss recruits with some teams that kind of have that I guess that experience level and play more of the or have that's their advantage. It's the I guess the knowledge of the game, the chemistry, the cohesive of the team versus the just raw talent and ability.
Yeah. Yep. One thing before we dive into I want to give us time to talk about our own teams a little bit, but I did see an interesting little bit, and maybe you've seen this, I don't know if you have, but there was a reporter, I guess, that asked Dan Hurley about the crowd involvement there for UConn. And of course, if you follow Dan Hurley, you know that things get off the rails a little bit sometimes. The guy's not exactly like he's not exactly always on the tracks, but he had a point, I thought, because they were kind of asking him about, well, I know you've done a lot to try to pump up the students and the crowd and stuff and get them involved, and I guess they had a pretty paltry crowd the last game that they played, and he was kind of he just told him, well, I kind of just given up on that. He's like, I did what I did. I've even asked the kids to try to encourage them and get them involved. He's like, but it doesn't seem like no matter what we do, that it changes. And he's like, I know some people sometimes aren't very happy with me or, the things that I do. He's like, but we've got some equity in this thing. He's like, we've won 2 national championships within the last 3 years. And he's like, we've anointed ourselves as the, college basketball capital of the world. So shouldn't it be the case that when people come here, it's a really, awful environment for them to play in? He's like, people should be here and they should be loud. He's like, it's not supposed to just be a fun social event. Like, you got to give us the advantage that we want to have. And I did think he had a point there. And I've seen this in some other places too. Iowa State earlier this week laid a turd on the road in Fort Worth and lost a game that they should not have to TCU. And I mean, the place was half full. And there was a top 5 team in town. And I just can't, like, as a fan of a team that always gets a good crowd, like, yeah, there'll be some empty sections, sure, especially on a Tuesday night or whatever it was. But for the most part, it's a fairly full place, especially when there's a top-ranked team coming to town, because it's interesting and you want to give your guys a little boost. And it seems like just some places in the country, you just don't get that. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why they struggle with it so much, but I can't imagine that kids don't see that and don't understand that some places are different, and that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes those teams and those programs be great, is when you always have that environment for somebody to come into.
Well, you don't have to be camping outside for a week like do at Duke or whatever.
Yeah,
but there's a middle ground there, and I mean, we're talking about basketball now, but any sport, it just kind of blows your mind. Is you don't have to be a sports fan. It could be like, it'd just be fun to go be like rowdy for 2.5 or 3 hours with your freaking roommates and your friends, and just go be crazy for a little bit. Like, I wouldn't think that. And it's not like they have we're talking about UConn specifically. It's not like they have a huge arena, filling that. It's not, you're not asking a ton. You get, 10,000 people max, maybe not even that much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the exact capacity off the top of my head, but yeah. But the TCU thing you brought up, sometimes it's not intentional. They want as many people as possible, but I feel like that's an advantage. No one has like having a team that has to play at like places like Penn State and Maryland and Rutgers.
True.
Sometimes it's like, as the favorite, it's like this, you kind of like you're sleepwalking through it. And no, that's not intentional. That's just a sidebar that I always think of when you look at the schedule, kind of like, shit, we got to go to Penn State this week. It's always dark in there. There's like 35 people. It's like, man, you better be ready to play, because you're going to end up, giving in a 30-minute game. Even like a Northwestern, it's like, I know they have like a smaller arena too for basketball especially, but it almost like plays a trick on yourself, because you're like, oh man, we can just show up and win. It's like, and usually you can, but you might end up having to pull away there in the second half, because this kind of puts you to sleep in some of those arenas. I hate that term, and people are like, oh, it's going to be a sleepy game.
Mm-hmm.
There's truth to being like, it's got to be motivated for sure.
Yeah that's an interesting viewpoint. I agree. But I don't know. It's just, sometimes it just blows my mind. Like, I turn on the TV and I start to see those shots of the crowd, and it's just like, really? Like, especially like if at TCU, for example. I mean, they're in Fort Worth, Texas. How many freaking people live in that metroplex, and you can't get $10,000 to show up to watch a basketball game? Like, crazy to me.
That's it. I mean, it's not football. You're not asking 50,000+. You don't need a huge number. Even if you get the lower bowl full, it looks good on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all you really need is, that. I mean, of course, more is better, but that's all you need to make it look respectable. And I just don't. I don't know. I guess people got stuff to do, and I can't say too much. But if it was, drivable distance within a night's time, I'd definitely be at a lot more games with the teams I follow. And it's more of a location and time thing. But if you're actually in the city, and then you're a supposed fan of the team, I don't know, not much excuse unless you work nights.
Well, there always seems to be plenty of them that show up on Twitter to tell you about how great they are. So, like, where the fuck were you?
Well, everybody's there though. I was at that game. Like, it didn't look like it on TV.
Just crazy. I don't know. I don't understand it, but wild stuff. And he's not wrong. Like, in that situation, Dan Hurley, like, you absolutely, you have done everything to motivate your fan base to be there and to support you, and you should be upset when it's not, you don't get the support that you think you should. So I'm not going to side against him on that one. Um, we're going to talk a little bit about our own teams. I already guess I kind of alluded to it already there. Strange week for Iowa State basketball. They went into that sleepy game. Yeah, they're at the TCU and just played absolutely like trash. I don't know what was going on. Like if it was just and we all have bad nights. Every team has bad nights. They had a really bad one. Like everything, there weren't a lot of positives that you took away from that game because turned the ball over, I think 16, 17 times. Just looked lazy. The offense wasn't moving, and nobody felt connected. Defensively got lazy too. Just not a lot of good to come of that. They lose it 62-55 in that game on Tuesday night. And then they turn around on Saturday and look like, again, a team that could win the national championship. Like I knew it was going to be a situation where they would probably win the game because I knew the crowd was going to be absolutely berserk and into it for once. It was a great atmosphere at Hilton, so hats off to the fans. They did their job. And the team fed off of that, you could tell. But then part of that too is, like we talked about, I guess finding ways to overcome little things. They really didn't shoot the ball worth a shit to start the game, and they overcame it. Like neither team was making baskets. They held Kansas too at the same time that they weren't shooting well because the defense was so good. And sometimes that's what you got to do. Limit those runs one way or the other, whether it's on the defensive or the offensive side. And then once the shots started falling, well, then it cascaded a little bit. And Milan Momcilovic got going. He hit the most ridiculous corner three that probably will ever be made in the building because dude was like falling sideways out of bounds and drilled it. And at that point, you knew they're going to win the game. It was going to be by how much. And always fun, of course, when you do that against a team that you don't like a lot. And we got a bad history with those old Jayhawks, and it has been one hell of a back and forth lately with one team blowing out the other at the other's building, and that's just the way it's gone. And glad the Clones could return the favor in that point. Now, the key is here, can they continue to do that? They've got a huge one that they turn right back around in and play in tomorrow night. They host Houston on Big Monday. A top 5 matchup, number 3 versus number 5. Of course, that'll change as we record this, what the numbers are. But one hell of a game, and they're on one hell of a stretch run against a lot of ranked teams. They still got games against Tech and Arizona, BYU coming up on the schedule. So it's not going to get any easier, but hopefully they can carry that over, and that's going to be the test, I think, through this run. Can they consistently have some level of that play? I don't expect it all the time and for the whole game, but can they do it for a good chunk of each of these big games in order to give themselves a chance to win some of them? That'll be the test to see how far they can go in March. Now, on your side, SJ, I know you kind of had the same type of frustrating situation earlier in the week. And about the worst way a game can end, I guess I will lead you into with.
Well, yeah, and even going back to that though, it's like that make that damn free throw. But there is, I mean, when you come out and play the way you did, it's almost like,
yeah.
For me, it's more bothersome. It's like the Illinois game where it's like you just came out flat and didn't have your A game. So those losses are more frustrating than even like the Michigan where you're shorthanded, but you played your asses off and you were in it. But yeah, that Purdue game, it's like, whatever, slips, and it was going to be a tough shot, but you at least want to get a shot.
Yeah, a chance.
Yeah, so like, just who knows what's going to happen? Throw it up, but yeah, it was wild. Get down by 22, and then end up coming back all the way, forcing overtime where you had a good chance of regulation to win it too. And yeah, that was that was the tough one to swallow because I know it feels like a team that you're probably at least as good, if not better than that. You could have let one get away, especially being at home. But that's the way it goes. And I mean, to me, it's more the consistency, I guess, I'm looking for. And you rebound with a pretty sizable win against Northwestern, who's not that great. But I mean, hold someone to 49 points. I guess you gotta, that's something to do. And you win kind of going away there in the second half when you still weren't playing that well. So I guess that would be my thing with you got a road matchup here on Tuesday night at Iowa is just when you come out, kind of come out on fire and come out hot and just be ready to play. That'd be the thing I'm looking for. I'm not too. I mean, we knew there was going to be some losses. Anybody that has like any type of common sense about them, that there's going to be a stretch here or there with every team. We just talked about Arizona. Michigan dropped a couple there that they probably didn't feel like they should have. any team go down the top 10 and beyond. There's a couple, 2, 3, 4, some teams 5 or 6 game stretch where you drop some games or have a bad week or 2 weeks, and it's got to kind of minimize that. So that'd be the thing here. And when looking ahead, this is the time to kind of rack up some wins here. You got, I mean, at Iowa could be kind of tough, but they've also kind of took it on the chin here the last couple of games. Of you drop one to Maryland that you had no business losing, and then Purdue just blows the doors off. So I mean, that kind of makes, I guess, as the loss is like, I mean, you feel like when you hung with a Purdue that just freaking blitzed Iowa, but then after Iowa, you got Penn State, losing record, Maryland losing record, then USC. Who knows what you're going to get with them? So you got some, pretty favorable schedule, and then even the last 2 of the season, UCLA, who hasn't been great, and then you play Iowa again to end the year. So, I mean, you can, who knows, anything's possible, but you play like you can, and you should have a pretty good end of the season here and go into the conference tournament with, right now you're sitting at 3 losses, maybe 4 or 5, or, best case scenario, you're still, still at 3. So, give you the double bye there, which is kind of the goal within that conference tournament, is not to have to play until that Friday.
Yeah. A couple of things, like you're right, like obviously very frustrating with the way they started that Purdue game. I mean, you give yourself a much better chance if you at least half-ass start the game well.
Yeah, the thing is, like, you don't got to play amazing, but you stay within 10 points and you probably win that going away in the second half there. But you're down, you're fighting against it the whole way.
But yeah, that last, it's like, I mean, come on, like,
how often does that happen? Like,
that, I know.
Like, that's
I mean,
yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and be a conspiracy theory guy. They try to do something, but like, that's what happened. Like, they were in their huddle and somebody spilled some damn water on the floor. That's what happened.
Yeah, they might not have dumped it, but it got spilled. However it got spilled, it got spilled. Like, could have been someone's ass sweat, whatever it was. It made the floor wet, whatever the hell it was. Like, whether it's intentional or not, it was definitely a wet spot.
I mean, because after he fell, the other 2 guys coming over to help him also fell down. Like, it wasn't like he was the only one.
Yeah, when you wouldn't wear those shoes that turn into roller skates or nothing like that. Like,
yeah. So that, I of course I was watching because Iowa State was playing right after him, on the same channel. But I did want to watch the game anyways, and it's like, oh my god, like you just, like, your heart broke. Like, even if you weren't a fan, they're just like, that's not how you want that game to end. It just sucks for everybody because like you say, you want them to at least have a chance to put a shot and see if it goes in, but. Good. I mean, good game. It was a hell of a battle. And they did bounce back nicely. That is an interesting, like you said, matchup. This next one, they're against Iowa, because they have kind of hit their big bump in the road, so to speak. Like you said, losing a game they had no business losing against Maryland, and then got absolutely blitzed by Purdue over the weekend. So can they bounce back? I'm sure they're going to be as motivated as they have been all season, so that's, provides the extra motivation, I guess, for Nebraska to know they got to come in and like you said, start strong and play well in order to win that one. So that will be a fun game to watch. I've got a good, at least a good feeling that Iowa State at least is going to give Houston a run for their money if they don't win the game on Monday night. I've got a good feeling they can win the game the way they're playing right now, if you can carry some of that momentum over from Saturday. But I also know that that's a really good team, so it's going to take a lot of work to do that. And then after that, they go to BYU on Saturday. The only saving grace there is that BYU's kind of been a little bit disappointing in their own right throughout the season, and they lost their best player, one of their best players today. Richie Saunders, unfortunately, is out for the season. You hate to see that happen. Like, the dude's a great, like, shooter, and it's kind of he's one of those guys, if you're not a fan of his team, he gets under your skin and pisses you off, and they lose that edge. So that's going to be tough for them to overcome. I think they just kind of lost their potential to be that upset team that I thought they could be. Maybe just went out the window with that injury. But still, it's not an easy place to play, and we've seen teams go on the road and lose to worse teams. So that's still going to be a good test. And, then they've got trips to Utah, who is not good at all. But then you've got to Arizona at some point. You've got Texas Tech. It's still on the schedule. It's not easy from here on out to finish the season. So they've got some work to do, and I'll be excited to see how they play doing it. That's a little bit of rundown there on the college hoops front, and of course, rundown of our teams and what we're expecting here this week. Should be some fun games. As of course, another thing we like to do is try to make some predictions and plays for you. Like we said, it is really difficult during the basketball season, but I think we'll try to come up with something, especially as we get here to tournament time. We can definitely do some more like what would you say, futures types of things.
Yeah.
Who's gonna win this tournament type of deal. We can definitely dive into that a little bit. So we'll probably do some videos on that front. And then of course, once you get into the NCAA tournament, then there's lots to start to prognosticate as far as who's winning and who can go and those types of things. But day by day, game by game, that's a little bit tougher because a lot of that stuff isn't known until right beforehand. But we will do our best, so keep us locked in on the social media. We'll put some stuff out there for you at SGMBets, at Cherokee CP. Those are our Twitter handles, so you can lock in with us on that front. And we'll put some plays out for you there. And then, of course, if you do want to see those video pics as they start to come in, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Every day we're covering, just like, subscribe, get the notifications so you know when those plays are coming at you. And then here on the podcast, like, subscribe, get the notifications, share with your friends. We'd certainly appreciate it. All the major platforms, it's out there for you. Our host happens to be at Spotify, but pretty much anyone that you're using as your general podcast platform, you'll be able to search and find us and have some fun. I think we're going to have, like I said, SJ, some good stuff to watch and definitely some entertaining plays to be made here down the stretch run as we get deep into college basketball, heart of the season.
Oh yeah, I mean this bracketology gets really wild about this time of year. It's like every it's like someone posts a thing and like another game happens and it changes right after that. So I guess it's fun to track, but also don't put too much stock into it either, because it's just, I mean, it's all a guessing game. Even with these so-called experts, I've been doing it for decades. But it is fun just to be like, see your team up there and what other people think of you, and you're like, maybe it's you get your bias and you try to just say, is this me drinking the Kool-Aid, or is this like a legitimate thing? So that's always good to see that and follow along with that. And I mean, I know you want to get exposure for your teams, but man, that's some of these scheduling things. I'm thinking about the Big 12. Like you go from Kansas on Saturday to another top team on Monday. It's like, and it's like that happens in other conferences too. But it's just like I don't know. I guess I prefer the weekend showcases being just busy on weeknights. But it's wild to just kind of turn around and do that. But that's just you only have so much time to get the season in, and basketball is just a different animal where you got to get the games in when you can.
Yeah, for sure. And those primetime windows that are premium, everybody wants them, so you got to get them in when you can. So, yeah, should be good stuff to watch this week, though, that's for sure. So that's going to wind it down for us here this week. We appreciate you joining us. If you have any feedback, be sure to hit us up there on Twitter. If you have any recommendations as far as plays to make, beers to drink, games to watch, we're all ears. Just hit us up there. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week here of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.